are listening to WCJV Digital Broadcasting, Youngstown, New York.
You are listening to Paranormal King Radio Network. Stay tuned for the best in paranormal broadcasting, including the best shows, guests, hosts, features, music, and educational programming. Join us as we work together to seek the truth and search for answers to the unexplained while promoting teamwork and working together. Thank you for listening to Paranormal King Radio Network.
What is a ghost? What makes someone investigate the unexplained? What really lies beyond the stars? Can people or objects really be cursed? Are the creatures in folklore based on real creatures? Some that might still exist today? Join us tonight for the Monday Night Paranormal Roundtable here on the Paranormal King Radio Network as we discuss these topics and many more in hopes of finding answers to these questions and so many others about the mysterious and unexplained. Stay tuned and prepare to learn and enjoy the show.
Hi everybody, and welcome to the show. We're doing a different show than what you're used to on the network here. I'm going to be your host tonight on a Monday night instead of being used to me on Tuesday. And I've got a couple of great people here with me. I've got Donald Davis. He is our operations manager with the Casper Paranormal team. And I have Roger Belt. He is the host of Half Past Dead Paranormal Radio.
Southern Fried Paranormal
Radio. That's right. You've changed the name of it.
Yeah, we changed it.
Southern Fried Paranormal Radio. And
get it right.
He is on the Half Past Dead Paranormal Investigations. That's what it is.
There you go.
So we're doing a little paranormal roundtable tonight. It's going to be an interesting show for you. And going to try to make it through the show without getting fired tonight. But anyway.
Nobody's going to fire you, Frank. Nobody's going to fire you.
If you get fired, Frank, you can always sell the drag queen reel and make lots of money.
Right. Well, before I ramble on anymore, I'm going to ask, how are you guys doing tonight?
I'm doing pretty good, Frank. Doing pretty good. I'm glad you invited us on tonight.
Yeah, I'm glad to be here. I've kind of sit around and waited all day for this, and it's a little bit different when you do your own show and you get to be a guest on somebody else's. You're not under the pressure bar anymore. You're just having fun with it. So yeah, I've been waiting on this all day.
Right. It is a nice little break when you get to kind of sit back and kind of like we're doing tonight, where instead of really having certain topics in mind, just kind of sitting back, talking about things, seeing what we can discuss, come up with, and questions are welcomed in the chat, and just see where it goes. We'll probably throw a little bit of paranormal trivia at everyone out there and talk about some of the cases that you've seen in the news recently and swap a few techniques, bounce a few ideas off of each other, and just see what happens.
For all you people in the chat room there, I'm the world's worst typist, so if you asked anything, I'll probably answer you on here because I hate typing. So anyway, I just want to tell everybody thanks for coming, and we appreciate it.
So,
oh, absolutely so. And I'm also in the chat room, so if I get quiet over here, I'm more than likely chatting with the guests inside the chat room as well. So I'll be in and out of the conversation too.
Well, I'm just doing good if I can chew gum and walk at the same time, so you just have to bear with me all the way around.
Well, see, I need one of those dragon naturally speaking programs to do my typing in the chat room. That way, I don't have to do it.
You need Siri. That's who you need.
That I've thought about getting some of that software, and it's tempting, but the thing that's always puzzled me about it is, at what point does it recognize, okay, he's talking to, what point does the computer say, okay, he's talking to me, or he's talking to someone else? Because I would hate to have my hard drive fried, deleted, programs erased, whatever, because I was fussing at someone on the phone, or
right. Yeah.
You call up, you're trying to pay your light bill, or
right.
You pull up something that you can't get off your Facebook page or something.
I had it and I didn't like it, to be honest.
I have the feature on my phone, but I just do it the old-fashioned way. I sit there and type it out. I use the chat on, or the microphone on text, but other than that, I just type whatever I need in.
Right. Well, and sometimes it's best that the things that we say don't get sent in a message. I'm just going to be honest.
I'm really bad about,
yeah, no
CJ and I talk a lot and everything, and we'll start out typing first thing in the morning. And after like 3 or 4 sentences, like, hit the Skype call button, that's enough of that.
Right, exactly. Well, you bring up phones and everything. That I'm going to just start off with a good old-fashioned controversial subject just right off the bat. How about cell phones on paranormal investigations?
Good one.
That's something that you get so many people. You just mentioned that, and a lot of people, that you might as well start talking about orbs.
There's so many.
Oh man, there you go with the O word again.
Right.
Oh God, don't even get me started.
But
I have a philosophy on orbs. Everybody that knows me knows my philosophy on orbs. When it floats up to my face and says, "Hey, Raj, I'm an entity," I count it as evidence. Or if it turns into an apparition right in front of my eyes, I'll count it as evidence. Otherwise, it's a bug, dust, moisture, or something.
Everybody has an opinion on orbs, I tell you.
Yep.
So.
Oh, it's funny when you open that can of worms and watch some of it. But so I'm going to ask both of you what your opinion is on cell phones and being able to use them on paranormal investigations. Do you think they are actually handy to use, or do you think they should be left in the car? Or
left in the car?
Well, I actually disagree. I think having your cell phone on you during an investigation is a little handy. You can use it as recording, take video.
Well, yeah.
Even use your flashlight on your phone to help you see around.
The ghost apps on the cell
phone. Oh yeah, no, absolutely no ghost apps. No, those ghost apps they're just for entertainment only. And And I'm not saying don't use them out there. I mean, most of the time when you're ghost hunting, you've got some time to kill. So why not throw something out there just to kill time? But, as far as presenting ghost apps as evidence, I wouldn't try to venture there.
I actually have the Echo Box on my phone, and I played with it a little. I actually did get some results one time. We hooked it up through a sound system, a entertainment surround sound system. That was pretty cool.
Oh, wow.
And
I bet so.
I downloaded a white noise app, and I ran both of those two programs together, and we run it through that surround sound system. And we got some definite answers with it. So I'm not totally denouncing that one.
I agree with you, Roger. Frank brought the Echo Vox on the last couple investigations we went on, and I'm not ready to throw it out there and say, hey, this is it,
Right.
But it was the evidence that we did get off of it was pretty good, pretty compelling stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So, and it's starting to make me think a little bit different about it.
That one, with the right kind of testing, I think could actually be usable.
Exactly. Yeah, I've got to research it a little bit more myself. I don't know a lot about it other than what, Frank has showed me and what I actually saw during the investigations.
That's one of the few apps, and very, very few. Usually when someone asks me about using phone apps during an investigation, but my personal policy is when you're on an investigation, phone needs to be in airplane mode so that it's not transmitting. And even
right, yes.
Even in airplane mode, this is something to consider is it still has a battery. It's still an electrical circuit. So if you have it close enough to an EMF meter, and it has to be pretty close at this point if it's on airplane mode, but the electronics in it can still put off a mild electromagnetic field. So it still needs to be kept away from the instrumentation. But it's not going to put off as much of a field as if it's trying to broadcast or receive a signal. So
yeah, and should be easily debunked if you get a hit on your EMF, and then hang on a minute, I got my phone in my hand, let me try it, and then there you go getting another hit. So you could kind of debunk that pretty quickly.
What I did when we did the test that we done, like I said, we ran it through a surround sound system that was like 6 feet away from the phone, so it didn't. If you turn the Echo Box all the way up without a external speaker, you can't do it. It squelches out really bad, and but if you use external speaker like a few feet away, it does good. And we had that like about 6 foot away, and I ran a digital recorder along with it, so we captured what we had from that on the recorder also. And we were also, we were doing like a regular EVP type session, so we actually had the EVP session on the recorder and what we got through the Echo Box.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, something to watch out for is that like I was talking about the the way that the batteries and the actual electrical current through the phone can put off a small field. That's what you call secondary electromagnetic radiation. So you have to be careful of it. Now, of course, outside of a foot, 2 feet, it won't do anything. So that's just something to be mindful of. But no, with the Echo Vox, we've been testing it. We've had some fairly compelling results with it.
Yeah, that's like I said, that one with some testing and you figure out the right way to do it.
Mm-hmm.
I think it'll be a really good tool to use.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I do too. I agree with myself. It answered a question that only I would know one night. So that kind of made me look at it a little differently after that
Right.
episode. So
Right. But just because the Echovox works or seems to work doesn't mean that, like those ghost meter apps and
Yeah.
there's a lot of technology on the market for paranormal investigators, but there still to this day is no such thing as a ghost detector.
No.
It doesn't matter how much money you're willing to spend, there isn't a ghost detector made
Yet.
right, yeah.
That's
yet.
still in the R&D department, but it does not exist at this time.
Oh, I think somebody will actually come up with something someday, but it'll probably be after I'm long gone.
Right. Well, I figure once they find Bigfoot, he's going to know how to make it.
Exactly.
He's carrying the schematic
He's
for it.
probably friends with all the entities out there anyway, so,
Right, dude. They're all hiding these secrets. That's what it
And
is.
you had to bring up Bigfoot. So, when you talk about the whole Bigfoot thing, my big question always is, and I'm not saying I don't believe that Bigfoot exists, but there's never been a body found. How come?
Well, that's that's a good question. That's a very
it
good
is
question.
really. That's something that I'm really not a big believer in Bigfoot. I'm not going to sit here and say there isn't no such thing, because as an investigator, there's always that possibility. But as far as and I'm not much. I haven't done a lot of research on Bigfoot. Just a couple of those stories that you hear, now and again about them. Couple pictures that people come up with, they turn out to be hoaxes. It's kind of hard not to lean towards they're not real, because of so many people trying to fake evidence.
Yeah, and that's the bad thing.
It is.
I mean,
It sure is.
but then again, you got that in the paranormal too. You got that, people faking apparitions and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
Which gives us a bad name, and it's not, uh, it's not us, okay? Like per se, your team, my team, we're not out there trying to fake stuff. That's one of the reasons why I always said I would never do a TV show, because eventually they're going to want you to fake something.
Right.
And I'm not going
Right, or try to.
I'm not going to go there. So, you can look at the Bigfoot stuff. You got people out there faking footprints and dressing up in gorilla suits and all this crazy stuff. And then you got people, you can get an app for your phone, speaking of phone apps, where you can make a ghost appear behind somebody in a picture.
Right.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, wow, you can get into some deep stuff right there.
And it actually looks, unless you actually just sit down and break it down, it actually
it looks
like
real.
it's real. I mean, they do a good job at it.
Well, and that's not to mention with the technology now. I mean, I can't remember off the top of my head. One of the two of you might remember it better than I do. The film that came out during the early '60s that was shot in Washington State. I can't think of it. The extremely famous Bigfoot film that we've all seen a million times.
Of it walking across the forest.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I've seen the video a bunch of times. Yeah.
Right. That the ones like that. If you consider the ones that came out in that time period, that there were so many, and some of those were proven to be fake. Now I can't remember what the final verdict was on that particular film. But
Worldwide Paranormal asks, what about Loch Ness Monster?
right. Well, that's also another one that some people have created hoaxes surrounding it, but there's still a lot of question around it.
Yeah, so and I've watched documentaries where they drug the lake bottom and using sonar equipment and stuff and trying to locate, anything large, in there and everything. Some of those, that's the thing though, some of those shows you got to take with a grain of salt too, because, they're wanting to prove something bad enough that, they'd probably fake a sonar or, just to get people to pay attention.
Right. Well,
you got to make something interesting, especially a story about Loch Ness
people ain't gonna want to watch, right?
Exactly, because it's been around so long. So many people have tried to fake evidence, and people are just real skeptic nowadays coming into coming into anything. Even even in the paranormal field, everybody you talk to starts out being a skeptic. I got into the paranormal because I was a skeptic. I wanted to see, and when I finally saw what I saw, and it finally convinced me that, hey, this stuff is real. I had to change of heart.
Right.
Well, some people that are what you want to call it, diehard disbelievers.
Right. Yeah.
Can go with you on an investigation and wind up not just changing their mind, but their drawers before the night's over. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Oh yeah. There's been a couple that went with us that walked in saying, what is going on here, and walk out or leave early, I should say.
It's always funny when there's nothing better than watching that moment in time when someone goes from a skeptic to a believer, and you get to see it on their face.
I grew up, and I've told this story a few times. When I was about 9 years old, I saw my neighbor's mother, who had passed away a couple of weeks before, walk right by me on the sidewalk, looked just as real as you and me. And I had it beat into my head back then. You didn't see that. You imagine things. There's no such thing as ghosts. Blah 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 blah. And years later and everything, I'm like, no, I know what I saw.
Right.
Oh yeah,
I didn't make that up. I didn't imagine that. I know what I saw.
and most people don't make it up. It happens to a lot of people. And a lot of people keep it to themselves until they get around a small group of people that actually, believe in what they're doing. And then they open up, and then here comes the stories. And then you get this person telling you, and then that person overhears, and then all of a sudden you got 30 people sitting there talking about ghost stories.
That have seen stuff themselves, and
and that's what we need to do, is just get out and talk about it. So.
Well, people,
as far as the Loch Ness, going back to the Loch Ness monster and the Bigfoot, and it's hard for me to believe in those because I haven't seen them. That I have not actually put my eyes on a Bigfoot or a Loch Ness monster personally.
If you put your eyes on a Bigfoot, it'll be just like the first time you put your eyes on an apparition. Okay.
Right. Well, yeah. Well, a Bigfoot can hurt you. They always say a spirit can't hurt you, but it'll make you hurt yourself. So a Bigfoot can get his hands
like
on you. So I'm not gonna be nowhere near a Bigfoot. Trust me.
Right.
That's hilarious. I love that.
But I will say with like with the Loch Ness monster. Now, how much validity there really is with the Loch Ness monster, that's hard to say. But if you look at how much of the earth is covered with water, dude, what's crazy is in science we know more about space than we do our own oceans.
Right.
So, and we don't know everything that's in the oceans out there. Scientists are still discovering new species. So it's very possible that there is something.
Look at the coelacanth, okay? That's from back in the dinosaur days. And it's still living and swimming around in the ocean, so there could be other things from those days somewhere deep down in there that nobody's found yet.
Right. And
Oh, there most definitely is. They haven't even, what, 75%, 85% of the world's covered in water. So that's a lot of places to have to look for something. So,
and there's like a lot of deep crevices and stuff down in there where anything could live down there.
oh yeah.
and something else to consider too is there's so many reports of different. You see a lot of sea monsters that have been reported and things like that. You have to wonder how how many of those are truly some type of sea monster, something like that, or is it a case of mistaken identity? Because even here in continental United States, in the inland waters, if you look at some of the fish that we have, like, have you ever seen an oarfish?
I've seen a picture of it. Yeah.
Or,
No,
I haven't.
if you look at an oarfish or a gar, like an alligator gar,
that I've seen.
Mm-hmm.
That I've actually caught.
An alligator gar
Oh, yeah.
looks like something off of a sci-fi movie. It's,
Right, yeah, they do.
and if I hadn't been out much in the world, didn't know what I had on the other end of my line, and I seen one of those, especially if it were still in the water, the way that they swim, they look much bigger than they really are.
Yeah.
So it's very possible that you could have some cases of mistaken identity. You could have that going on, but who's to say that?
Speaking of fishing, you ever been fishing and had to change your drawers?
I tell you, there's been a couple times on paranormal cases I thought, I've heard a lot of people say that they've never been scared on a paranormal investigation, and my personal theory is, people can say what they want to. If you haven't been scared on one, either you haven't.
They just ain't been on the right one.
Right. It's either that or they're not being honest with you, because I've had the crap scared out of me. I'll be the first to admit it.
Oh yeah, most definitely. But not on purpose, actually, out on the water. I mean, maybe accidentally, but I've never had to change my drawers on the water.
I was sitting on the riverbank fishing one day, and it was just starting to get dark. And I had a lantern with me, of course. I just hadn't lit it yet because it wasn't dark. It was getting kind of dusky, And I'm sitting there fishing and everything, and the first thing that happened was an otter popped up right straight in front of my face, about a foot out from the bank. And I almost threw my pole in the water. It went over back. And then right after that happened, it was probably maybe 5-10 minutes after that happened, a big old alligator gar rolled up right in front of my face, and that thing, I guarantee you, was about 4 foot long. And once again, almost threw my pole in the water.
Now,
over here, the beavers are real bad about coming up behind you in a boat and slapping the water with their tail. It'll definitely make you really ready to go home for sure.
Now, we got a couple of questions from the chat here that I want to address. One is, we have a question from Dawn about our opinions on the Mothman prophecies, which of course relates to the Mothman. That goes back to the Point Pleasant, West Virginia,
right,
Mothman case, and the bridge collapse, and that there were just that there was so much activity surrounding that. I'll go ahead and ask both of you what your opinions are, and then I'll give mine on that, and then we got a couple of other questions to go over too.
I believe there was something strange going on there, but Mothman, I would have had to see it myself.
Yeah, that's another one of those Bigfoot Loch Ness things. It's where something where I have got to actually be there and see it.
Yeah.
As far as I've never actually read up on. I think a movie I've seen on it, and read a couple of just little paragraphs of an article on one. And but as far as it was based on a true event, so some of it had to have been real. So I would say, that's one of those toughies. We're in the paranormal, so you don't want to come out and say no, it wasn't right off the bat. So it's something that I would like to kind of see more of, hear more of.
If you ever heard that saying, "I'm from Missouri, you got to show me."
Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah. I'm from Tennessee, and you got to show me. So, I'm not saying it don't exist, but I'm saying show me that it does exist.
Right. Now, my personal opinion on that is, if you look at that, like you had mentioned, Donald, it is based off of a true event. In the movie, they talk about in one part of it, there's the dream, and she hears the voice saying, "You're number 47." Well,
right.
There was the bridge that collapsed, and there were 46 people that drowned in the river during the bridge collapse.
Mm-hmm.
They all did the investigations and later found out that it was due to a rusted eyelet that gave way, and when it finally went, that's what caused it.
Chain reaction on that, yeah.
But the thing that interests me about that particular case is, as far as the Mothman that is actually described, I'm much like you are. I'm kind of skeptical, but I believe that there is something there.
Like I said, I think there was something strange going on there, but I would have to see the Mothman. Okay,
right. I believe
every story begins with a bit of truth. So you just got to you've just got to decipher the truth out of that. Because especially a story, the story's been told 75 times, and somebody's going to add just a little bit more to it, So you've got to go back to the drawing board and start your research yourself and draw your own conclusion on that. So
I've always said every legend steeps in fact. There was something that originally happened that, like Frank said, has just been added to until it gets unbelievable. But every legend steeps from a fact. Something that happened at some point in time, and it got embellished or whatever along the way. But yeah, I'm a firm believer that legends are all based on facts.
Well, the thing that intrigues me about that particular case is really the Mothman itself captures the least of my interest surrounding that. Actually, what is quite fascinating about it is, at the same time, and for 2 years prior to the bridge collapse, there were the Mothman sightings. But aside from that, there were sightings of the Greys, that are associated with the extraterrestrials, the Grey aliens. That there were just a numerous amount of people reporting seeing the Greys. There were just Bigfoot sightings that were off the charts. There were people that were talking about the number of paranormal cases with poltergeistic activity were just so greatly increased during this time period. and there were just so many different strange, unexplainable events all at once that Point Pleasant, West Virginia became just a literal hellstorm of paranormal activity surrounding the bridge collapse, and for the 2-year period before then. So there was definitely something that happened there, and it wasn't something small. It was a significant event. Now, what it was, I don't know, but it's something that I would love to research further.
Oh yeah, that would require delving a little deeper into. You know, and what about the Jersey Devil?
Mm-hmm.
Now that one's been around for a long time, and you know, there's been a lot of people who claim to have seen the Jersey Devil.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's one there that I just honestly just don't believe in at all. Really, is the Jersey Devil. So, you know, I'll read up on certain things that you hear about and you see or you happen across, and you know, you read into it for just a little bit, and then, you know, it's kind of hard not to just brush off a lot of these sightings. So, you know, and it's hard for people like us in the paranormal investigation just to say, no, that's not true.
Right.
You know, because we're sitting here trying to tell you ghosts are true. It's real.
Yeah.
And, you know, so who am I to tell
one,
you
know,
that?
Or experienced
Yeah.
it,
Who
like,
am I to tell you
oh.
the Jersey Devil isn't real? So, you know, that's just one of those agree to disagree.
And I have to bring up my point again. Legends are based on fact. Now, having said that, I'm going to take this way back into time. Back in the pioneer days, the early days, a lot of these legends began way back then, okay? Now, back then, people were really superstitious anyway. And all they had to do is see a deformed person or something. And automatically, you know, a monster's born. You know, and it just grows and grows. You know, and of course back then that was their way of dealing with stuff like that. You know, it was a monster. They saw a monster. It was the Jersey Devil, whatever you want to call it. You know, and it just gets built upon until it becomes what we hear about nowadays. Now that could be your factual part.
Mm-hmm.
And then, you know, as it grows and grows and grows, it becomes, you know, everybody claims. And if you'll notice, as something grows, one person can take it and blow it out of proportion, and the next thing you know, you got 30 people claiming they saw what this one person blew out of proportion.
Right.
Right.
And
a lot of them is just wanting to, you know, to claim that they saw something like that to get their little moment of fame in front of the TV camera. So, you know, you can look at that in a lot of different ways.
Right. And let me see. There was also another one that I seen as well. Let me see if I can find it again. Let me see. Where'd it go? We were asked about the Bermuda Triangle as well. So
now there's a good one.
So I was going to get your thoughts on that.
The Bermuda Triangle. That is. Boy, there's some good questions coming out of chat tonight, isn't there?
Yep.
So, the Bermuda Triangle, that is something that you really have to look into a lot because of all the strange happenings that goes on in that little area there. Plane crashes, ships, you know, disappearing, no communication whatsoever.
Planes disappear.
Oh yeah, you know, all the accounts that happen out there. And
now the weirdest part on that one, in my opinion, is when the ships don't disappear, but the crew does.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Right, yeah, no kidding. Yeah, they find the ship, but no one else on it. Yeah.
And it's just like they just sit down to eat or something. Everything's still just like it was. They're just gone.
Well,
Big mystery, I tell you. That's something that I couldn't give you much info about because I think it has a lot to do with maybe you know weather patterns out there in that certain area. You know there could be all kind of factors going on.
Yeah, but when it comes to the people just vanishing like that, that was hard to answer because if it was weather related, you'd think the ship would have went down.
mm-hmm.
So,
Right. Yeah, you would think so, and then or you would find them then in a rescue craft.
Or something,
not far behind. But it was
And
like they just abandoned ship, and then that's
why
it.
would
You
they?
never
Why
see or
would they
hear from
just
them.
abandon their ship for no reason, and everything's still just like it was, and unless there was, unless the ship was actually going down, why would they abandon the ship?
Well, and it really depends on how technical you want to get with it. But
True.
Right, yeah. I mean, understandable if you're in a ship, and I used to work on the oil rig, so they teach you all that. If you're in a jam, you're going to get on the rescue boat, notify, Coast Guard and all that. But you're in a rescue boat, and
Right.
unless the currents change, wind directions change, it could possibly blow you in a different direction that the ship is going in,
mm-hmm.
and that's possible.
Well, let me just throw this out there. Okay, every report of people who have went through the Bermuda Triangle and had an encounter and lived to tell about it, that they have always reported their gauges go crazy, their instrumentation is just
Right.
completely it's gone. Their gauges can't read the gyrometer. It goes off. The altimeter,
It goes steady backwards
going.
and all kind of crap.
So, and you have to ask yourself, well, what do these gauges work off of? They detect the Earth's natural magnetic fields, and they work off of air pressure. So, if there's a differential in the Earth's magnetic field and a differential in the static pressure in that area, then that's going to cause those gauges to malfunction.
True.
So that might explain some of that. But is it enough that it may allow for some of the things and without going into something that we're going to need a quantum physicist to break out the marker and pull out a whiteboard and explain it. It makes you wonder, could it be allowing for time slips?
Now, I thought about that.
You also gotta factor in. You have all that electro charge and all that. Then you throw in a high pressure, a charged storm comes in as well,
Mm-hmm.
which just really cramps it up. And that in itself there I would think you already got a disturbance, and you add another disturbance on top of that. It just that it just would really throw things off just atmospherically.
Well, now there's also the thought of wormholes.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Now, if the magnetic fields and everything were just right in that certain area, and everything fell into place, and there is a wormhole
Mm-hmm.
in that particular area, that could be where some of the stuff disappears to.
Mm-hmm.
Just throwing that out there.
Right. Is and that's a very good point. That's something that I would like to see researched further. Is it maybe not something that's so much paranormal, but maybe is there something that is allowing for passage for maybe is there a wormhole, maybe the conditions are right there, by a natural disturbance that is allowing for some type of interdimensional travel.
True. That's exactly the point. And I actually watched a video documentary. Of course, I'm real big on the whole UFO thing too. So, you know, back
Hmm.
when World War II was going on, Germany was supposedly building these circular, saucer shaped craft. Blah blah blah. Um, it was something that I remember about that, about going through a wormhole,
Hmm.
and that they were supposed to be traveling to this place to where the extraterrestrials came from, that gave them the technology to build this stuff.
Hmm.
Now it may sound far fetched, but what if it were true?
Right. Well, I've heard several times, similar to what you're talking about, that in a sense of, um, and now this is, you know, this is when you start getting into, some of your scientists who really have a lot of time on their hands to think of some of this type of thing, but it it makes you wonder, because I've heard them explain that even traveling at the speed of light, that some of the journeys from, say, here to another galaxy would take so long that, interplanetary travel would be just unfeasible, as something that would, the effects that it would have on a typical body. And, there's just so much to it that it's something that is hard to fathom as ever being feasible in a practical sense.
Well, now it's
Um,
believed that that's how the
mhm.
aliens come here, is through wormholes.
Right, and that's exactly right. And there's so many people I've heard that have suggested the
Yes, I
theory,
do, King. I believe in the Travis Walton story.
right, that they have technology to create a wormhole, or actually what is known as an Einstein-Rosen bridge, that connects from, instead of making a wormhole, so to speak, in your space-time fabric that, goes to a void, it creates a shortcut from, you have point A and point B in your 4D, or, well, what's the best way to break this down without having a whiteboard behind me? it, it, that's the only thing about doing radio, is I can't draw this out for everyone. So trying to
Exactly, or
describe
the
it,
listeners all have to have a degree to understand it.
right? If you imagine a flat sheet of paper and draw two dots on this flat sheet of paper and fold it down in half, where those two dots line up with each other,
Right.
and then you put a hole between those two dots. That's kind of how a Einstein-Rosen bridge would work.
Well, and that's the way he
Right.
described how a wormhole works.
Right. There's still the same linear distance, but it's still a shortcut from point A to point B.
Yeah, it's kind of like yeah, exactly like you said. If you took space and time and you folded it in half,
Hmm.
like if you took Mars and the Earth and put them on opposite ends of a piece of paper and fold it together, it's like, stepping off of this planet onto that one.
Hmm.
Whereas it's what, so many thousand light years away.
Hmm. Right, because true linear space travel, is just, it's hard to imagine it ever being practical. But in And that, if you can harness that kind of technology, then that makes it a real possibility. And then, as far as Bermuda Triangle goes, look at how many reports of UFOs come from the Bermuda Triangle. And you can't talk about
exactly.
And you can't talk about UFOs. Let's talk about the Loch Ness Monster and everything else earlier. What also goes along with UFOs? USOs. How many reports?
Underwater, yeah.
How many reports of UFOs do you see where they originate, where they're taking off from, or going into the ocean? And you have to wonder.
Going in, coming out, yeah. Now, and there's supposedly they think that there's like a USO base somewhere off the Florida Keys there, somewhere down there. But I watch a lot of those shows and everything, and some of them you have to take with a grain of salt, and some of them you kind of halfway say, yeah, there's a possibility there, you know. King has said there's no such thing as time travel. Who you kidding? I have to disagree with you. You know, every time I travel, it takes time.
and UFOs, you know, UFOs to me, that's something that, you know, I believe they're out there. I believe UFOs, but I really don't, because I don't like the fact that I'm being watched by something. So, you know, the UFOs, yeah, I can give that more credibility because of so much more sightings than Bigfoot and Loch Ness and, you know, all the other legends we talked about earlier.
Right. Well, now, do you still have the aluminum foil hat that I gave you at the last meeting? Because I'm wearing mine right now as we're doing the show. That's why I'm asking, because but now see, I've learned the theory to this though. If you're going to make one, and I'm putting this information out here for everyone, if you're going to make an aluminum foil hat, put the shiny side out, and use the Reynolds aluminum foil. Don't buy the cheap stuff. And Reynolds, this is a free broadcast. I'm not being paid a dime to say this. You know, I'm doing this for your own benefit. But put the shiny side out so it reflects those waves that are coming in.
Right.
Because if not, if you put the shiny side in, you got to think about this. What does it do? The waves go in and then they bounce around. They can't come back out, and then your mind's toast. You end up like me. Don't let this happen to you. That's my public service announcement. If my parole officer's listening, you heard it.
You don't ever know if it's up for Sam or the Grays, you know, so you got to be prepared for both.
Right.
So that's what the problem has been the whole time. You had the Reynolds wrap outs upside down, inside out.
Yeah, the non-reflective side.
Right.
Yeah, no kidding.
And I've got one more question I was going to take before we take us a little break. I was asked, you know, which of the new, let me see, where'd it go? Of the new toys they have out there, new equipment, which of the most would we like to have? So
I would say the SB11.
Yeah.
I would really like to have it and try it out, because I really like the SB7. I've used it for years and years and had great success with it. So I would really be interested in trying the SB11.
Okay. What about you, Roger?
I think that'd be a great little gadget to play with. Now,
it would, because, you know, and going back to the SB7, a lot of people don't like using the SB7 because they claim they don't get a lot of results from it, and I think it's because they don't use it enough. If you have a piece of equipment and you don't use it on every investigation, you're never going to learn its techniques, or you know, and you know, in the SB7, you have got to have an ear to hear the response. It doesn't. You may get radio this, and this, but all of a sudden that difference in the language, that difference in the sound, is what you pick up through the SB7. It's not every response you get is a response from a spirit.
Well,
And it takes a lot of listening. It takes hours and hours of listening through of recordings and recordings of spirit boxes to pick up that little bit of difference.
also you got to take into consideration that not every response you get is going to be in English.
You're right. Absolutely, you're right.
Yeah, we've actually ran into that quite a few times.
You know, and if you don't understand the language, you're not going to pick it up as a response.
Right. We actually were on an investigation just a couple of months ago, and we had a voice start coming through in Spanish. That at first we couldn't tell anything that it was saying. When I recognized that it was Spanish, I started speaking Spanish back to it, and then it went from just a couple of random words that are just some random blips that could have possibly been responses to just coming through just in a compelling burst of responses just amazingly. So that's absolutely true.
Responses that were slowing the speed of the SB7 down, which is something that I've never had. Every time it would respond, it would be a real strong response, and it would slow the speed of the box. It would actually slow down the speed, and it was just real weird.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, any of that stuff is like the Echo Box and all that stuff. You know, you got to work with it a while. You got to test it in different ways, and if you use one enough, you learn how to pick up the different things. You know, you can't go
right,
out.
Correct.
You can't go out there and use something once or twice and say, "Oh, it don't work."
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you had to put it through vigorous tests. You had to use it in different situations, and over a period of time, you're going to find out, is it really working, or is it, just a bunch of hoopla or whatever.
Exactly. I mean,
Now,
that was when I first started. It was 5 cases before I got a whisper off that SB7, and if I would have stopped using it week 2, I would have never got the results that I have gotten out of it. And that's the benefit of actually getting out and using the equipment you have and learning your equipment.
And you have to do it enough to where you can pick up those little responses that nobody else wouldn't pay any attention to.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
That's the name of the game in anything paranormal anyway, is persistence, because
exactly.
Think of how many cases that you've been on, and you sit there all night, you've got your gear out, and you've been there for 5-6 hours, haven't heard or seen anything, got no readings, and but
I'm glad
ready
you brought
to just pack up and call it a night. And
well, because he brought up a good point, because a lot of people who are gung-ho to get into, to investigating and everything, because it's the excitement they're looking for. They go with you on an investigation and nothing happens, and they're like, well, just like I thought, there wasn't nothing to this. They didn't give it a chance. Well, the same way with equipment, you have to give it a chance.
Absolutely. And you've got to not only give it a chance, but you have to learn it. And something that I tell people all the time is your equipment comes with an instruction manual for a reason.
Well, but the instruction manual on some of that stuff is just kind of like a, how do I describe this?
Written in print.
It's a way of telling you, well, this is how you use this. It's not saying it's the only way to use this. You know,
Right, yeah, you've got to get out and you got to try it and use your different techniques. There's, I
Right.
mean, just because my techniques works for me doesn't mean my techniques will work for you, right?
right.
Or my techniques will work for Frank. It's something you just got to get out and try, and
It,
not give up on, and keep on and keep on. It will eventually, and you will eventually get that ear for that sound you're listening for.
the instruction thing is a basic map
Right.
telling you, you know, well, this is what you do. It's up to you to
Right.
expand on that, you know, and find what actually works for you.
Right, absolutely, and that's why I tell people all the time, you know, it's like I said earlier in the show, there is no ghost detector. That does not exist. So the most
Right.
critical part is to know what your equipment does, because
Hopkins County.
most of our equipment that we use is not designed specifically for the paranormal. You know,
You're right. It's not.
most of it's designed for other things. So what you have to do is familiarize yourself with how this piece of equipment works, why it works the way that it does, what affects it, what doesn't, and every possible thing that can interact with it.
Exactly. Conditions are right for possibility of paranormal activity. So, like, you know, EMF detectors. Not every time your meter is off, that means there's a spirit there or a ghost there or whatever.
Right.
That just means that you call a fluctuation in the atmosphere. That's all it is.
Right.
So,
Right.
you have to research more into that. You've got to investigate further into that.
Right. Well, I mean and that's a good point, because, you know, if you haven't done your homework, don't understand the principles of it, your K2 may be going off and you're getting all excited about it, but if you haven't done your homework, it may just be the spirit of the paranormal, or it may be the spirit of the telemarketer that's calling you, who is working second shift, wanting to sell you a timeshare.
Or the fluorescent bulb in the kitchen, or
Right.
the coil on the back of the refrigerator, or you know that. So it could be a blue million is the reason why that K2 meter is going off. So, and again, you've got to take your investigation into it a little further. Is a phone going off? Am I near one of these outlets or pieces of equipment that's giving off this stuff? So and debunk it possibly. Now you know you've got to investigate it. You can't just go out and say, "Oh, you see that? That means there's a spirit here. Your place is haunted," and leave. You know that's not what the people are looking for. They want answers. They want in-depth answers, and you've got to be prepared to have that answer for them.
That's exactly right. So on that note, I'm going to give everybody a chance to go ahead and take about a 5-minute break here and refill those coffee cups while I'm doing the same thing myself.
How did you know I was how to do that?
I could hear it in your voice.
I was ready for a cup. Yes.
Yep,
See, I have my big cup here, so I was already prepared.
Well, we'll let you go get a warm up and let Donald go get a refill, and I'm going to refill mine and let everyone listening get them a refill, whatever they're sipping on. So whatever you do, don't go anywhere. We'll be back here in 5. Hi, this is Frank Lee, and you're listening to the Paranormal King Radio Network. Be sure to stay tuned for the best paranormal host, guest, and news from around the world. And don't forget, we bring you the best in music as well. Stay tuned, keep learning, and remember, the paranormal will never be the same.
You are listening to WCJV Digital Broadcasting, Youngstown, New York.
And we are back. In case you're just now tuning in, I'm your host Frank Lee, and I have Roger Belt and Donald Davis on the line with me. We're doing a paranormal roundtable tonight. So, hope you're enjoying the show. We've been covering a variety of topics, and last place that we left off, we were talking about everything from the Loch Ness Monster to Bigfoot to UFOs, USOs, ghosts, equipment, you name it, we have covered it tonight. And we've got so much more. We were just talking about some equipment, and
But now we haven't covered invisible snakes yet.
right. We have not covered invisible snakes.
The night's still young.
Hey, we got feedback.
Yeah, I am hearing a little bit of an echo there. Let's see.
See if it's
Thanks, Don. Dawn.
Am I the one with the echo?
Sound like I was saying Don.
Okay, I think the echo is gone now.
It's Dawn. D-A-W-N. Dawn. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of legends and myths that you can bring up and say, well, is it real or is it Memorex? You gotta. Some of them, as Donald mentioned, ain't even worth researching, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
But then some of them, they've got just enough of that strangeness to them that you want to learn a little bit more about it.
Right.
Like the Bermuda Triangle. That's something I've always had an interest in because they have not proved 100% that the gas bubbles are the cause of all the disappearances and the sinking ships and planes.
Right. Well, and it's like I was discussing earlier. I fully believe that the Bermuda Triangle has some very real, unusual activity there, but I believe that the level it's on is of more of a quantum nature than a paranormal nature.
Yeah, exactly. It's
Right.
not. I don't think it's strange as in like the way we would look at something strange. I think it's more of a technical thing.
Mm-hmm. I really believe. Well, let me ask you to this. What's your opinions on time slips?
I'm not necessarily one to really believe in time slips. To be honest with you, I just don't see how that's possible. I don't see. To me, there's not enough science behind a time slip to say yes or no. So I for one don't think I don't believe in time slips.
Well, and I'm one of these people that believe there's a possibility for everything. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to say that they're not possible, but I would have to have further proof, something to actually substantiate it.
Well, I will say this when it comes to time slips. I believe that there is a possibility of them. My personal problem with a time slip is if you look at the way that a time slip is actually laid out is that whatever conditions are right allow for you to slip from your current position in the space-time continuum to another point in time. And that goes back to that linear model that we were talking about when I compared it to the piece of notebook paper.
Right.
So if you've inadvertently went from point A to point B and you don't know exactly how you got there, where the wormhole, where the bridge was, or whatever that got you to this point, then I would believe that getting back to tell your story about this time slip would be that would be where I would have the issue.
Okay, let me throw this in there. In your UFO abduction
Mm-hmm.
scenarios, uh, a person claiming to have been abducted also claims that their watch or clock or whatever stops at a certain point,
Mm-hmm.
or um, they could have looked at their watch or clock, etc., and it's this time, and the next thing you know, when they're at themselves again, it's like 4 hours later.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, where did that time go? That's the question.
Well, I
Would
my
that be considered like a time slip? You know, and of course, alien technology, if you believe in that stuff, is very, very much advanced.
I would say it would be classified as a time slip, or time lost. If
Yeah, yeah,
time
yeah.
didn't,
Mhm. Well, no.
he's saying he was gone for 8 hours, 8 hours or so from Earth, but felt like he was gone for 2 days from an actual time. You
Yeah.
know, uh,
Well, no.
so that yeah, that to me that would be considered a time slip in
Well,
his mind.
well, no. My personal theory on that is a little bit different. Um, my personal theory on that is if you look at the nature of most of your abduction cases, most people recall feeling somewhat paralyzed,
Yeah.
if not completely paralyzed. They recall really bright lights, um, a lot of times blurred visions, not being able to really make out details, almost like
Being in slow motion.
right, exactly. Which a lot of this seems to be um, the same way that you would describe someone who had been drugged.
Yeah, yeah.
And
Right.
with that being said, I want to pose this question to you, and anyone who has ever underwent surgery or been put under anesthesia can relate to this. When you're put under anesthesia and you wake up, you don't have that concept of that time. When you wake up from that anesthesia, you might have been out for several hours between the time that you were in the operating room.
And it's kind of because I've been through
Hmm.
that.
But it
It,
seems instantaneous when.
it's kind of like, you remember the last thing that you remember before you went under, and
Hmm.
you remember what you saw when you woke up,
Right,
and the rest of it's like a void.
right, right. So my thing is, what if it's not really something that's all that high tech? What if maybe it's something that's chemically induced?
True. Whenever they abduct you, and I'm not saying abductions are real. I'm not saying they're not real. But if you were abducted,
Hmm.
they put you under some kind of uh, anesthesia,
Hmm.
you know,
Right.
before
Because
they take
a
you.
lot of people
Take,
claim.
so you lose that
A
time
lot of
because
people
you're
claim.
under that anesthesia. You won't remember any of that, except the point that you wake up.
Hmm. So
Correct.
that's
That's why some people claim that they have these hoses hooked to them and these gadgets or whatever. And a lot of claims of UFO abduction. So yeah, that will make me believe that they put them under some kind of anesthesia to hook all this stuff up to them.
Yeah,
right.
and
But
you may have bouts of kind of semi going in and out,
hmm.
and you may see blurred visions or something like that, where you wouldn't, have a clear picture of what you're seeing.
Hmm.
It's kind of like maybe when you're coming out of the anesthesia or whatever, you may go in
Hmm.
and out for a little bit before you actually wake up,
Right,
and what you're seeing is not going to be clear.
right. Right.
So yeah, it makes sense. I think that's what they would do.
Right. Well, and if you look at the practicality of it, if you're going to abduct someone and you want to abduct someone discreetly, then you're going to want to subdue them. You're not going to want to drag them out,
Exactly.
kicking,
Fighting,
screaming,
kicking,
fighting,
yeah.
making a making a distraction, waking up the neighbors.
Okay, so now let me throw this in there. If they are that far advanced, it always, in those cases where they show, where people are supposedly abducted, the UFO comes over, they shine this light on you and everything, and the next thing you know, you're waking up 6 hours later or the next day. If they're that far advanced, why couldn't they have something in that light that would put you in like a trance or a anesthesia type state?
It's very possible. If you consider the fact that our brains work off of electrical signals, and if something were to maybe disrupt the natural signals or alter the signals that were being put out, that's very possible. That's a very good point.
King said, how you know it was the aliens? Well, because they showed me their Visa card. But anyway, that's just a thought, since we brought up, they probably put you under some kind of anesthesia. If they had something in that light that would put you in a trance or a meditative state, so to speak, or just, where you're not completely conscious. You
exactly. I mean, you never know, because they could change the paths of the way we think. Or that's what puts us in that state.
Yeah,
change the electrical path in our brainwave with that light they shine on you or whatever.
In that light could alter your way your mind is perceiving things.
Exactly. So that's just something until it happens to me. I really,
Exactly.
Now, if I ever come out and say, "Hey, Frank, I know exactly what happens when you're abducted," then you might want to sit down and start writing something down, because something just happened to me.
Right.
Think about it. If that current or whatever that's in that light could put you in that kind of state, could it not also stop your watch?
Absolutely.
Sure it could.
Because,
sure it could.
Well, and especially if you have especially if you have a mechanical watch.
Exactly.
You're right,
well,
exactly.
Most of your watches run on batteries anyway.
Okay.
So if it could affect that charge in that battery, it could make it shut down.
Yes, absolutely. And we've got another question from the chat. Ross was asking, and he was asking
Great question.
Right, he was asking about like witchcraft and curses, if we believe in them or not. So
that's a good question.
So I'm going to ask the two of you your opinions, and I'll give mine, and we'll talk about that.
Well, how do you say this? I believe that curses will work if a person is willing to believe in them.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, what I'm getting at is, say you put a curse on me, and I believed in those curses and everything, that they actually work and everything, that it would affect me. Mm-hmm. Because my mind is set up for it.
Mm-hmm.
But if you don't believe in all that kind of stuff, I believe that it's not as apt to work on you.
Right.
Right, and I somewhat agree with you, Roger. I can see where you're going with that. If both people believe in voodoo, and they bring out the voodoo doll and start poking it with the needles,
you're gonna holler ow.
Right. Yeah. yeah, other people are going to see and go, yeah, and then, and that's, but I can see where people could jump on ship with that kind of religion, so to speak. But yes, I do believe it. I actually do believe witchcraft and all the spells and go hand in hand with the paranormal. I think that witchcraft conjures a lot of spirits. So of course we have to believe in the witchcraft and the curses in order to continue, or in order to research what we're doing, because they go pretty much hand in hand.
Makes you susceptible to those curses and all that stuff.
You're right. You're exactly right. And you have to prepare likewise when you go on cases like that.
Okay, now if you believe in spirit activity, so to speak, which we do, of course, most of us do.
Right.
I've seen it myself. I know they exist. Now, if a trying to find the right words here, if a spell or ritual or whatever was put out there to bring forth a certain spirit and everything, do I believe it could be possible? Yes, I very much believe it could be possible.
Yes.
Sure because now I believe in this, so this kind of puts out there how it all works. With me, if you have a strong enough desire in your mind, you can pretty much bring forth anything you want. If you're a practitioner of the art and you have the mindset for it, yeah, I believe you could conjure about any spirit you wanted to.
Right.
It's in the frame of mind. I still believe it's in the frame of your mind. It's in what you actually, how strong your beliefs are.
Right, you got faith in what you're doing, belief in what you're doing.
There you go. It's like having faith in God and all that.
Exactly.
Some people
different
believe,
denominations.
Their faith is so strong in God that anything is possible. Well, it's the same thing if you reverse it and turn it around to the pagan side.
Exactly.
You got a strong enough faith in what you're doing, yeah, anything is possible.
Right. I have to agree. As far as, in the witchcraft side, I absolutely believe that you can use witchcraft or many other things to conjure things, to, different things like that. Or like Tristan just mentioned in the chat, voodoo. I absolutely 100% believe that you can use voodoo to conjure spirits, things like that.
Now,
as far as curses go, I believe that curses are 100% in the person that it's directed at and their belief.
That's what I was saying. If you believe in those curses enough, and somebody puts a curse on you, it's going to affect you.
I believe that, I 100% believe in the power of suggestion.
Oh, yeah.
And I believe...
I proved that one.
And I 100% believe in mind over matter.
Right. It basically boils down to the psychological effect on what you believe in.
Right. And if you look at, this is something that I love, and this is what really drives me to love studying parapsychology, is when you look at the power of the mind in itself. It's fascinating. So many people really don't give themselves enough credit for the power of their own thoughts. Your thoughts really and truly direct how your life is going to go, whether it's good or bad.
A real good example of the power of the mind. Look at Crowley. that guy could convince anybody of anything.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, he had a mindset that would allow him to, uh, and he delved into all kinds of the dark arts. We know that,
Mm-hmm.
but he could convince you.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of like, you know, he could be talking to you, and these little fingers would come out of his mind and latch on to you, you know, and you're gonna believe anything he tells you.
Right. They, there's so many people that don't really look at the full effects, but there have even been studies done on the mind's ability to heal the body. There's,
Well, yeah,
on a show back a couple of months ago, I interviewed Bill Sweet, who'd done some research with Spindrift Research Organization with the Klingbeils, who did research on the power of prayer, and it wasn't
that works too.
right, and it wasn't just over one religion. It was over all religions, and they included meditation and things like that, and they in a lab actually documented physical changes in the environment based on structured prayer regimens that it was fascinating. If you look at what the nature of a poltergeist, for example, that's when the human mind basically is forced with has so much pent up emotion, and that it's forced to either shut down or discharge some of it. And this energy projecting from within the mind
Exactly.
actually
If you
creates its own entity. So
whenever people pray, it's the same thing as doing a ritual in the pagan side. You know, you're putting energy out there. You know, and it's proven
Right,
that you know,
it's up to you whether you put out
human does
positive
not
or negative energy.
Right, and the human does not use 90% of their brain.
mm-hmm.
Just imagine if you were using all the parts of your brain, what kind of energy you could put out there.
Right. Well, they
I
actually.
I believe that some people are able to use more of their brain than others, and that's why they're able to do some of the amazing things that you see them do.
Right. Well, that's like with my personal theory on your psychics, your mediums, your clairvoyants, whatever name you want to give for them. People with these abilities, these extrasensory perceptions. I don't think that those are, and this is just my personal opinion, but I don't believe that those are really special gifts. I believe that those are abilities that we all
have
potentially possess
that we don't use.
Right. I believe that those are locked in a part of the brain that not all of us know how to use.
Exactly. That's what I was talking
And,
about. There's parts of the brain that people don't use.
Right. And I
You
believe
know, if everybody. Now I've heard, and this is just I'm gonna throw this in there because I've read or heard or something about it and everything that all of us at one point knew how to use all that capacity.
mm-hmm. But I do. I've always believed that they just knew how to tap into that particular region of the brain.
Right, and I think some people can tap into it and not even know that they've tapped into it. Just under certain circumstances, it just comes out in them.
Exactly. Yeah.
And I think a lot of investigators who out there in field that they could possibly be a sensitive or an empath or something of that nature actually is.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, basically just reiterating what you said, Frank.
Right. I've always felt that was the case with that. And you brought up a very good point about people having those abilities and not realizing it. And that also goes to telekinesis or psychokinesis.
Right.
That, or if anyone's not familiar, the ability to actually move things with your mind or have a physical influence through your power of thoughts. And
now, I'm going to ask you, this goes to you there, Frank.
Mm-hmm.
You're familiar with Star Trek, the original Star Trek series?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, do you remember the episode where they dealt with the entities that were pure energy?
Oh, man,
No body, no form, pure energy.
very, very, very vaguely.
Okay, that is what I believe we will eventually become. Because I think that the soul is pure energy.
Mm-hmm.
And at some point, we're going to shed the bodies and just be the pure energy. I really do think so. It's not going to be in our lifetime, I'm sure, but at some point, I think that's what's going to happen, and that's what's going to be the way the human race is going to survive in the long run.
That's
out there, I know, but, just saying.
Well, if
that's not as far-fetched as you think, Roger.
Well, I was just thinking that brings around to something that I meant to ask both of you, which was, what do you believe a ghost really is? And
a ghost is energy.
Mm-hmm.
Right, I believe the same thing. Ghost is spirit is energy,
Mm-hmm.
and an energy that is hung around, and
exactly.
it looks for more energy in order to try to communicate and manifest.
Exactly.
And, speak with you. And when people bring a lot of energy in, it can feed off that. When people bring negative energy in, I feel like that's when a lot of your negative energies start playing in the game.
Yeah.
Correct. So yeah, I think a spirit is energy, and it just looks for other energy that people bring in, or that the earth puts off, or a building puts off to communicate.
That's what we are going to become in the long run at some point.
Well, here's another question that I'm going to pose to you, and this is because of that. You would both agree that basically a ghost is a consciousness, or the energy, the consciousness without a physical body. So, with that being said, what would you think of maybe a person who is having an out-of-body experience? What are your thoughts on that? Would they, while they're having that out-of-body experience, would they be considered a ghost if you encountered this person's
That's a really
entity?
good question, actually.
It is. There's a fine line between a spirit and a ghost, I guess you would have to say. Where would that fall in? Out-of-body experience.
I've heard it said that when you have an out-of-body experience, your soul leaves your body and goes traveling. Well, what is your soul? It's energy.
Correct. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So if your soul leaves your body,
you're basically saying
it's basically the same thing as a spirit.
Mm-hmm.
Correct. And that's the way I feel too. That your energy, your body has just released energy, your soul, your subconsciousness, whatever people feel comfortable with,
mm-hmm.
and it's energy, and that's how you that's how you remember what goes on in the room when you really shouldn't.
That well, and that brings me around to a point that I make sometimes, which is when people want to know a specific definition. I always tell them that I believe they ask me if there's a difference between a ghost and a spirit. And I tell them that I believe a ghost is a recording or an energy that's imprinted or recorded in time, maybe onto surfaces in the past, like you would encounter in a residual haunting.
Yeah.
That replays. It's not
Correct.
an actual spirit there. It's a moment that's captured in time that replays over and over again.
But now you
I believe
also
that's a
have the
ghost.
spirits that interact with you, which are not like a residual.
Right. Right.
You know, how would you classify that versus, you know, something being trapped
Right.
in a
Right. I believe
tape
that.
recording?
Right. I believe that residual energy, that residual activity, I believe that's and this is just when people get technical with me or want something specific. I tell them that's my definition of a ghost. It's something that's imprinted. It doesn't interact with you. It's just, it's a memory.
Right, and a spirit is
Correct.
actually something that
Right.
interacts, and it's
Right.
like a pure energy.
Right. That spirit is there. It's a
To
consciousness.
me, it's more like an energy release. You know, a piece of wood or a rock or anything, they give off energy just like anything else does.
Oh, yeah.
And I think during the perfect atmospheric times or barometric pressures are right, and you know when and all the stars line up, it gives off that energy, and that's where you get your residual EVPs, your residual noises, is an energy release. Not so much
Well,
a ghost, but as an energy release.
And you add stuff into it, like, you know, if you're around quartz or running water, there's electrical storm going on or whatever, you know, it intensifies that energy.
Right, correct.
So, because they have something to feed on. So, you know, I mean, that's the difference between the ghost and the spirit, in my opinion, is the spirit will feed on that energy to present itself. Whereas a ghost is just a replay in time. It's not going to feed on anything. It's not even going to notice that you're there.
Correct. We just
Absolutely.
happened to be there and record it when it happened.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, and I'm
And
going
I agree
to,
with you, Roger. I have to agree with that.
well, I'm going to ask an unrelated question, and this is for a reason. First, I'm going to ask this to Donald. Donald, what would you say is the funniest thing that you've ever had happen on an investigation?
The funniest thing that's ever happened on an investigation. Oh man, Roger's already laughing. He's already got a story conjured up over there, doesn't he?
Frank already knows, right, boy?
I guess the funniest thing that's happened to me on an investigation there's been a couple things. The main one that kind of sticks out to me is on my very first investigation. Just got my camcorder with the night vision, and I was going to be just like the TV shows and walk around in the dark. All I could see was through that viewfinder. So, you know, of course you know the story of Team Orbs, the team
Right.
I started out with before we joined up with Casper. We come into the building. I was always going, all right, everyone, you know, we got to be quiet. We got to not make noise, and we can't be running into things. And the first 10 minutes of a recording was me running into every single thing that was in that building. I would hit my head. I would trip over a pallet laying in the floor. I mean, it was terrible. I mean, we ended up having to stop and take a break because all the evidence was contaminated from me running into everything. So that turned out to be pretty funny.
hands down, the 15-foot invisible anaconda had to be the funniest thing I ever encountered on an investigation.
And you know, I've got to get you to share some details about the invisible 15-foot anaconda that you encountered on there.
We got called to go to this house, and of course, when I got there before Dusty did and everything, and me and this other dude, and the husband, took us out toward the backyard to show us where stuff supposedly happened out by a tree line or something and everything. So we get out there, and he's telling us about this stuff, and I turn around, and the first thing I see is a telephone pole on each side of this house with big old transformers on them.
Mm-hmm.
The red flag went up right then, EMF's off the chart.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, we're in there, and at some point, it was, I don't know, we'd probably been there a couple hours, maybe. It might have been longer. Anyway, I was in, like, the front bedroom doing some EVP work in there, and Dusty was talking to the lady of the house, who took him out to the little entryway to the back door, which is where they had their washer and dryer and all that stuff,
Mm-hmm.
And she's telling him that they have a 15-foot invisible anaconda in their house. And right now it's wrapped around this little stick tree thing sitting on a shelf above the dryer at the utility room there. And so Dusty, being the nice guy that he is, always trying to help the client, right? Reaches up here and grabs this invisible snake, and he's got his fingers about maybe 10 inches apart. And he's unwrapping it from this stick tree.
Mm-hmm.
And he says, "Have I got it?" And she says, "No, it's bigger." So he spreads his hands to about a foot apart. "Have I got it?" "Yeah." So he does the motion of unwrapping this snake from the stick tree thing. He's got it, he's got it down now to waist level or whatever. And she's like, "You don't have its head. It's biting you right now." He moves his hands forward a little bit. He goes, "If I got it now." She's like, "Yeah." And he goes, "Well, open the door. I can't let go of the..." He goes, "Open the door." She says, "What?" He says, "Open the door. I can't let go of the snake." So she opens the door, and he wrestles this 15-foot invisible anaconda out of the house. And he tells her, she's like, "Well, will it come back?" He says, "No." He says, "I'm going to have my convict ghost kill it." So he says,
that's crazy.
Kill
That's
that
hilarious.
snake so it can't come back in the house. And so he goes, "Okay." He goes, "You're safe now. It can't come back. Convict killed it." So
Then, my question is, I can't help but wonder if she had ever had the thought cross her mind to call animal control about the invisible anaconda.
Well, hey, you got to add in here now, before this all happened, Dusty was in this is a double wide that's got like 2 bedrooms on the front end of it.
Mm-hmm.
And, or no, it's got 1 bedroom on the front end of it and 2 on the back side.
Mm-hmm.
And he's in the front end bedroom where the kitchen is, off the kitchen there, which is their bedroom.
Mm-hmm.
And the guy's showing him where the activity's happening in this bedroom, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he pulls out this drawer and says, "This is where we keep all our drugs."
What?
And it was full of all kind of daggum pills and everything you could think of. I said, "There's where the snake comes from."
Exactly. I was gonna ask you that. Was there any drugs or alcohol involved in this case?
Well, now my question is, did Dusty ever get treated for his invisible anaconda snake bite?
No. And I think that's affecting him to this day, too. I think all that venom has made him crazy. But anyway,
that's a good one.
One of the funniest things I ever had happen to me, and I've got several I could share, but I'm not even sure if I've told the team about this one. This goes back to the very first investigation I ever went on. This back, it was this was right around the time I was, just getting into it. Didn't know anything about the paranormal, especially about paranormal investigation. So first time I'm ever on what we called an investigation. Me and a couple friends of mine are out in this little cemetery right outside of Birmingham, and we had our little $19 micro cassette recorder from Radio Shack, and had a couple little flashlights.
Not the Pro, right?
And it was the Radio Shack brand. We weren't, at that time we hadn't stepped up to the Optimus Radio Shack yet.
There you go. Yeah.
This was just the regular old Radio Shack brand. And we had our little 35 millimeter camera, and people
Man,
that
old school, man.
Oh yeah, this was back. This was around 1999, and we we're out there. This was one of those wonderful times when you go out all night and you take all these pictures, and then you have to wait about 2 days after you go out to get your pictures back to see what all you didn't capture that you thought you did. I guess would be the proper way to phrase it. And you go, we're going out there, and keep in mind, I was young. I'm just a kid, don't know anything about it, but I'm all excited, half scared to death, but trying to not let on that I am, along with two other people that are in the same exact boat I'm in.
Pumping out all that male testosterone.
Right. And we're out tromping around through this cemetery, and just don't have a clue what we're doing. Every time we hear a noise, we're jumping, and all of this. Well, I get near this one particular grave, and I hear something, and it startles me. And best I can figure, it was probably a squirrel, or maybe a chipmunk, something like that had moved. But it catches me off guard. So I'm looking over in that direction, and I'm kind of walking backwards with shining my flashlight over there where it came from to see if I can spot what it was. Well, as I'm walking backwards, there was a little small tree. And this little tree's right behind me, and I'm moving backwards toward it, and I forgot about the tree because I'm trying to see what it was that was sneaking up on me. From the other way, that squirrel might have been the Grim Reaper. I didn't know. And so as I do, this tree wasn't very big at all. It had a couple of really low branches, and it, one of these branches might have been about 3 foot off, 3 foot off the ground. I mean, the whole tree wasn't, but probably 15, 20 foot tall, and one of those branches touched me right in the back. Now, behind me, it's pitch dark. And all I feel is something that feels kind of like a claw right in the middle of my back. And I'm in the middle of this cemetery. And I've already heard something that I couldn't see that was behind me, and I can't find it. And now I'm feeling this something that feels like it's a claw in my back. I jumped so bad that I tripped over the tombstone that was beside me, landed, and about busted my head open on another tombstone. I about ended up being the next dead body out there. And I don't admit this to many people, but I did. That scared the crap out of me. I
Goes
missed
back to what I was saying earlier. A spirit can't hurt you, but it'll make you hurt yourself.
Right.
Yeah.
I did. I missed that. I missed hitting my head on that tombstone by just a couple of inches after I tripped over the one that was beside me. I mean, that I guarantee if there were any ghosts out there, they were laughing their butts off at me. I gave them enough free entertainment for a couple of
And they do
months.
have a sense of humor.
Right, and I guarantee I was fueling it for them because you know watching all three of us out there jumping at everything and then seeing my big butt tumbling over a tombstone like that because of a squirrel and a tree, and you know because the tree got me.
Actually, me and my brother one night, we were looking for a graveyard that we were told about, and not many people knew about it because it was all grown up. It had probably been that way for years. It was a real old, like, family, little small family cemetery, but it was out in the woods in the middle of a field. Or it was actually farmland around it, but it was like a island, a hill-like thing out in the middle of this field, all grown up with trees and everything. And we were out there, and of course, back then I used to be the party animal. I'll admit it.
Mm-hmm.
We were about 3 sheets in the wind, and we were out there with big ladders looking for the cemetery in the middle of the night. And that's how I found it. I tripped over a tombstone, like Frank said. Head over heels, boy. I tripped over that thing, and down I went. And I probably missed one, like he said, by an inch or two. But anyway, that's how we found it. It was really weird. The thing about it is, after we found it,
Mm-hmm.
somebody mentioned it, and the county come out there, cleaned it all up, put up some new markers in places for the unmarked graves, and then let it all grow back up again. Made no sense whatsoever.
Right. You know what was? I don't know what was worse. Was when that happened to me, how embarrassed I was that it happened, or how bad it was when I was lying my butt off trying to cover up, hoping that nobody else had seen it. And they're over there. You okay over there, Frank?
Yeah.
And, me. Oh yeah, I'm fine. I'm just, I think I found a hole or something. There's a root sticking out of the ground. Right.
Well, that kind of puts you in mind of some of those movies that you watch where the kid's in the bed and the limbs blowing and it's hitting the window.
Mm-hmm.
And the shadow of it makes it look like a clawed hand or something,
Right.
and it's coming up and hitting the window. And they're sitting there all drawn up like I don't know what. Or they got the blanket pulled over the head and the flashlight on.
Right.
Oh yeah, and it happens to all of us. It happens to every one of us. And if it hasn't happened to you, just wait. It will. So something's going to jump out and grab you, and it's not going to be what you're expecting.
You could probably talk to just about any paranormal investigator out there, and if they were honest,
Mm-hmm.
when they first started, there was a similar story somewhere in there.
Oh yeah, most
Right.
definitely.
Right. Yeah, you
Now,
have
they
to have
couldn't admit
scared
it,
yourself.
No, but
Right. That's like a rite of passage. You have to at least scare yourself once.
yeah, thank you. There you go, rite of passage.
Right. Right. Well,
Exactly. Yeah.
right. And well, Donald, I'm going to tell on you. I think you've got an experience with that too, don't you?
Scaring myself? Yes, I sure have. It was on the demonic case we actually went on, and let me tell you to start off with, nothing ever happens to me. People get touched on it, and my teammates will back this up. Right, and so again, we go on another investigation. I don't see the shadow figure. I don't get touched. I feel like sometimes I'm just there to record everything, and that's about it. So, but anyway, that night something happened to me. So
Well,
I was
now
already unnerved.
let's back this up, because on top of you normally don't have anything happen, but you had already been rattled a little bit before this.
Right, yes. We actually, you and I had walked outside to the cars, which was out along the side of the house, which the two-story home, it had the bedrooms upstairs, so it had two windows. A light was on in the bedroom to the left, and the light was off in the bedroom to the right. And we were standing out there talking, getting some more equipment. And I looked up in that window, and there was the perfect silhouette of a woman. I could see hair, long hair, and it looked like what she was wearing was a gown, looking at me out that window. And the minute I locked eyes on it, it backed away like it really didn't want me to see it. It just backed away real quick. And I was like, whoa, Frank, there's something in that window. And, we walked back inside, and the rest of the team was in the kitchen. So we went in there and said, was anyone in that back bedroom just a few minutes ago? And the homeowner actually said, no, that bedroom is my mom's room, and it's locked. No one can get in there. And that's when it really hit me, that something was looking at me through that window. So that was the first time that I had actually put my eyes on something that clear, that visible, that it actually made me think someone was looking at me through that window. So that unnerved me right there. Well, a couple hours later, my jacket was tugged on. That got me a little bit unrattled again. So we stayed there. We actually weren't communicating with this that night, which was a good thing. We were just basically there to monitor. So that morning, we stayed there all night. That morning, we were going around getting the equipment. And I walk into the bedroom where this thing was, so I saw this thing standing in the window, and I went to grab the camera that was sitting in there, and unbeknownst to me, there's a full-length mirror to my right, and I looked to my right, and I jumped clear out of my shoes because my reflection was staring right back at me. And my own reflection in that mirror, I thought something jumped out of that closet and got me. I almost took out. And if investigators ever tell you that, no, don't run, don't believe them. Because that's the first thing your feet wants to do is take off. I'm going to tell you.
That's
You
still
can't
the most
help but
classic
run.
line of any of those TV shows that I've ever seen. Dude, run!
Right.
Right. So sometimes you may not run, but there are times where you are going to take out screaming. I'm going to tell you, and that was a moment where I had to catch myself halfway through the hallway. Like, wait a minute, that was me.
Well, I had an oops moment like that, and this was before I actually started investigating. But it was one more of the things that actually got me started investigating later on. We lived in a trailer park one time, a long time ago, and we had some friends that lived in the last trailer down on the end there, and we were down there playing cards one night. And my daughter was down there, and she had went to the bathroom, and they had like these sliding doors on the shower, right, which is right next to the toilet. And she said, I was using the bathroom, and those doors on the shower started shaking. And now you got to take in mind that there's a train track that runs right behind there, but there wasn't any train. So you can't say, the train rattled made it shake or whatever. There wasn't any wind blowing. And if the wind were blowing, it wouldn't be blowing on the inside of the house to make the doors rattle.
Correct.
Okay. So she told me about that. And so I had that in my mind. Well, about probably an hour later, I went to the bathroom. And I'm standing there and I'm doing my thing, right? And I looked over at those shower doors and said, okay, show me. They started shaking like you wouldn't believe. I come out of the bathroom, Johnny's still hanging. And I'm making it up the hall trying to get Johnny back where he belongs. That scared the living crap out of me. I mean, it was instant reply, And I mean, those
Yeah,
doors were clanging like, like somebody, they were going to come plumb out of the dadgum sockets.
Right, you weren't
Yeah.
expecting that. Not
No,
that quick anyway. You weren't prepared for it.
I wasn't expecting it, period.
Exactly. Yeah, so
But if somebody's
it's
been
a
filming
fight or
that,
flight.
yeah, they'd have got a good view of Johnny because he was still hanging when I come out of the bathroom. I promise you, I didn't take time to worry about that. That was something I was doing on my way up the hall.
Right. You don't have to be the fastest one. You just got to be faster than the slowest person. That's all you have to be.
Yeah.
Right.
It's a good thing there wasn't nobody coming down the hall because I guarantee I'd have bowled them over like 10 pins,
Right. That.
So
Right.
yeah, I think everybody has their ups moment if they want to admit it, where they got the Jesus scared out of them and they were like trying to get the hell out of Dodge.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
That.
But later on, that experience did help my desire to get into the actual investigating because I thought, man, that really happened. Why couldn't I have had a recorder then?
Oh, I know. It always seems the best evidence you can get. You never have anything going, or it just drained all the batteries or something.
No, I mean, it's just all of a sudden. And it also, whenever you hear people talk about, well, I got a direct response to my question, on this recorder. Well, I didn't have a recorder, but I got a hell of a direct response.
I know. Just in experience now, with if it's not recorded, though, that's the bad thing about it is it's just an experience.
There's no way to prove that it happened, but it happened.
Exactly. Yep. And so many times that happens, you have a great experience and it's not recorded, and all you can do is just tell about it.
Yeah, I mean, you just because you're not expecting it.
Right.
Yep.
And even our walkthroughs and everything, just a tip out there for the new investigators or investigators that don't do it now. I always try to have a recording the minute we walk into wherever we're going.
Right. Exactly.
At least try to have one recorder going during the interview of the homeowner, the walkthrough, everything. So that way, if something does happen, you at least have audio of it.
What do you do then? And this is a question I'm going to throw out there to both of y'all. What do you do when you go in to set up for an investigation? What is one of the first things that you do? Outside of making sure you have a recorder running, like you said, just in case. You set your cameras up, right?
Correct. Well, the first thing that I like to do is I like to go in and I like to get to know the homeowner for just a minute. Sit down and talk with them, put them at ease. The less nervous energy they're putting off, I think the better the outcome of the investigation will be. And then I allow them to take us through the home and show us the hot spots. And then, of course, like you said, start setting up the equipment and go from there.
They show you the hot spots and you set your cameras up and get them rolling, right?
Correct.
The first team that I ever worked with when I started investigating would not let us set up cameras until the last 30 minutes that we were there.
What?
Yeah. And now this was how much of a control freak he was on having to run everything.
Huh.
What was his thinking behind that?
Right now. Yeah. And if you watch taps, and I used to watch taps a lot back when they were actually real, during the time they were setting up their cameras, they were catching stuff.
Right.
So, you don't wait and put off setting up, your cameras and all that stuff until the last 30 minutes that you're at an investigation. I ain't never seen nothing like that in my life.
Right.
Yeah, that wouldn't. You're there to collect evidence and try to come up with a solution or an answer to the homeowner in 30 minutes of an investigation, and that's not enough evidence to try to collect to make a decision. What I'm getting at, though, is you can have something happen the first 5 minutes that you're there.
Absolutely. Well, that's
and if you're
correct.
not prepared for it, you ain't going to get that.
Absolutely. Well, that's like the experience that Donald was talking about, where me and him seen the figure in that window when we went out to the car to get equipment. We hadn't been there 10 minutes at the time that happened on that particular case. We were literally
Right, yeah, we hadn't even set up any
right. We were
equipment.
literally in the process of unloading equipment out of the cars. So yeah, you're absolutely right. But it makes sense though, because if you think about it, you've just arrived at the location, and if there are spirits there, they're going to be curious about what you're doing. Who is this? What are they doing? What is this they're bringing into my area?
Right.
Right.
You know,
Well, and another thing about that same investigation that we were at, the we were there to investigate the ghost of a little girl who was supposed to be there, and the little girl was killed across the road from the driveway by a tree. Well, me and my son-in-law, who was my daughter's boyfriend at the time, he was with us, went outside to smoke, right? So we walked across the road over there to the tree, and we were talking about, and I had a recorder going, and we were, just over there doing EVP, and just, he comes and sticks his head out the door. What are y'all doing outside? Y'all ain't supposed to be out here. And, I'm like, well, ain't we going to investigate the actual place of death? Well, no, all the evidence that they're talking about happens in the house. It didn't take me long to find another team, I promise you.
right.
I mean, everything that we did was totally, how do you put it, not what you would do.
Right.
It goes against anything that you've been trained or have seen or expect an investigation to go.
Exactly. You don't, how do you not investigate the actual spot of death?
Right.
And how do you not turn your cameras on until the last 30 minutes?
Well, and
Right.
something else, and this is something that's always given us good results. A lot of times, soon as we set up our equipment, we don't immediately start investigating. I mean, sure,
Correct.
we get our equipment set up, and after we set it up, we'll go through and we'll do a couple of sweeps, like with our EMF detectors, and get a few baseline readings to compare to, and we'll do that sort of thing. But we don't immediately jump on going into to the EVP sessions and start trying to take pictures and doing all of this sort of thing. As soon as we get the equipment set up, we sit back, we relax, we talk to the client, we just sit around and we're just there. We get the client to relax, to go about their normal routine. And what we do is we try to make things as close to normal as we can for a couple of hours first.
Exactly, yeah, I was going to say.
That way, it gives, if there are any spirits there, it gives them time to adjust to you. That way you're not just barging in the door, interrogating.
It's like when you set up a deer blind. When you first set that deer blind up out there, they're not used to it. They're going to shy away from the area. After they get used to it being there, then they come back around. If you set up your cameras and everything, and then you kind of just leave things alone, they get used to the stuff being there.
Right.
Right. To me, it's like, you just don't want to rush in and into someone else's home and start pressuring them with a bunch of questions. Then the energy's all wrong.
Right.
You come in, you sit back with everyone, you talk about, just whatever. And like Frank said, go about their day like they normally do. And, and just talk normally. And then all the energies kind of level out. And I think, and that's when you get your better results, is when you're not, everyone's all boisterous or nervous or scared or, any other emotions you have.
But it gives the spirits there a chance to get comfortable with you being there.
Exactly.
And it'd be just like when some of the people that live there's family drops by,
Exactly.
sitting,
Yeah.
talking, carrying on. Then when you
And
actually
we
start
and
moving out and doing your investigation, they're used to you being there.
Hmm.
correct. And that's why we like to have the family and the homeowner there along with the investigation with us, because the spirits are used to them, because they're communicating with them. And a lot of, and there's the first case, Casper, we had was up in the house up northern Alabama. We went to, didn't get much at all until the homeowner came back about 3 hours later, and the activity immediately started picking up. And and they came along and stayed the rest of the night with us, and we had some good results. So that in itself, to me, I think is just a comfort zone to have the family along the investigation with us.
Well, that and the fact that, like you said, they're used to them. You know, you
Exactly, and it come
come
off
in there and
professional as well to the client.
you come in there by yourself, and the people that's been experiencing this stuff aren't there. The spirits know they're not there. They know there's different people there, and it's a known fact that they don't play on cue. So you could be there without any. The homeowners are kind of like your trigger object.
Right.
Exactly.
They're used to them, and they're used to doing whatever they do with them being there. So when they show up, it's all right. Mom and dad's home. And they start doing their thing.
Yeah, correct. We've even went as far as the homeowner not wanting to stay on the location with us for a while to go in before we go in and do an investigation, and just give the spirits permission to communicate with us.
Right.
Try a different tactic. Try a different tactic that way. I'm not saying it helped the investigation. It possibly
Sure
could
it
have.
does, though, if you think about it.
Exactly. So
That that brings about another question. I I was going to ask, um, what would you consider? And I'll ask this to you first, Roger. What would you consider one of the most interesting pieces of evidence, like photo or EVP, whatever, that you've gotten since you've been investigating?
I would have to say it was the lady in red. I showed you the picture of that. That was something that we weren't expecting that, because when we were in just so everybody knows, we were at a little no-name cemetery way out in the boonies that's all growed up, tombstones falling over, all that kind of stuff. Your basic creepy-looking little family plot out in the middle of nowhere. And we were standing toward the fence. There's a barbed wire fence that runs across the back side of this thing, and it's like a field on the other side, and then there's woods a little further back. And we were snapping pictures, just random pictures, but we always look in the direction that we take the pictures in before we snap the pictures, in case we did see something before we took the picture. And when we took that picture, or my buddy took the picture, actually, it was his camera, but we looked out that way and there was nothing out there, nothing at all. And he took that picture and that showed up in it. So,
Oh, wow.
when you get something like that, it's like, I've had people say, well, it's a red wrapper hung on a tree, blah, blah, blah. No, it wasn't, because we looked out there was nothing out there. And this shows up in there, and Frank will tell you, you haven't seen the picture, Don, but Frank will tell you, there's a lady floating out there. No legs, you don't see no legs, you just see the dress. But you can see the head, you can see the arms coming down, dark hair.
Yeah.
And it's just
Yeah,
floating.
you definitely have to. Yeah, you definitely have to send it to me.
Yes, it's
Frank, you have it, don't you?
I'm not sure where.
But it was not. There was nothing out there. Absolutely nothing. And I
Wow.
didn't know he had captured that picture because he didn't know it till he got home and he was going through the pictures on there. And he said, "You ain't gonna believe what we got." And he sent that
Oh,
picture
man.
to me, and I'm like, "Wow." I mean, that was one of the wow moments because we was not expecting that. And the same thing happened, and I had the picture. I took this picture um, in the area where we were. You're familiar with the old type tombstones that would start out like maybe 2 foot square at the bottom and come up to a point,
Mm-hmm.
and they're really tall.
Right, like the old obelisk style.
Yeah, yeah. Well, there's
Yeah.
there's 2 or 3 of those that have fallen over, and they're like half buried in the ground. They've probably been laying there forever. Well, the bases that they fell off of are still in a row down through there, 1, 2, 3, like that.
Mm-hmm.
I looked across the bases of those tombstones, didn't see nothing. Snapped a picture, and on the base of one of those stones looks like a black and white dog laying there on top of the tombstone, on the base of the tombstone.
Oh, cool.
It was not there when I looked, but it was there in the picture. And I asked the question when I posted it on my page, and I circled it, and I said, "What is that?" Because I'm like, that wasn't there. And I had people say, "Well, it's a cat, it's a dog, it's a this, it's a that." And I don't care what you call it, it wasn't there when I took the picture.
Right.
So that was really weird. And that was the same night. We had both of those. I had captured that one, and he had captured the other one.
Right.
And I don't know, it's just,
And
it's one of those I can't prove that it wasn't there when we took the picture, but I know that they weren't there when we took the picture.
well, Donald, I'm going to ask you the same question. What's probably the most interesting piece of evidence for you so far?
Oh, let's see. I would say the most compelling evidence. I think every piece of evidence is compelling to me.
Right.
Right.
but the one that sticks out the most to me was a complete sentence from the SB7. It was probably fourth or fifth investigation I was on. We were in a basement of a residential house, a residential location, and hadn't had anything go on pretty much for several hours. And we're probably hour 5 into investigation, and we were sitting in the basement doing a spirit box session.
Mm-hmm.
And we had asked the question. I said, nothing's really going on tonight. If you don't communicate with us, we're going to leave. We'll go home. And, of course, nothing happened. And I think another investigator asked pretty much the same question, was, if you don't want us here, we'll go. If you don't want to communicate, we'll leave.
Mm-hmm.
Well, 30 seconds later, it come over the spirit box. Do you want to go? Just as clear as a bell. I mean, you couldn't have said it any more perfect. I mean, it startled every single one of us. And even on the recording that I have saved, you even hear me go, "That was a complete sentence." It was just crazy. And the only piece of evidence we captured that night was that one response, the complete sentence. And the only time I have had a complete sentence come through the spirit box.
Well, you gotta
and I've had that. And I've had that spirit box for going on 4 years now, so that's a lot of use and only one complete sentence.
Mm-hmm.
That's the main one that stands out with me.
Just proves, like I said, that if you use something long enough, you're gonna get something.
Exactly, yeah. So
you gotta love the ones that you get, the EVPs that you get, where it's like more than just a word.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Yes.
We had one where in an apartment my daughter and them lived in here in town. It's a real old house that had been made into apartments, and we left the recorder in the bedroom, shut the door, and we're sitting in the kitchen smoking, drinking coffee, carrying on. Well, in a little bit, my son-in-law went back to get the recorder, and you hear him open the door and walk in. And you hear him go, "I'm back. Where's the recorder at?" And right in between "I'm back" and "Where's the recorder at," you hear plain as day, "Go away."
Mm-hmm. I,
Oh
I'll
yeah.
tell you, talking about that, that reminds me of one that we got on an investigation last year. Been just nearly a year ago. Um, we're doing one up in North Alabama that, um, this place, very interesting case. The the people when they were renting the house, and they didn't have any kind of activity going on at first. Well, there was a strange door in their basement. Had one of the creepiest basements
Oh
I've ever
yeah.
seen. And
Yes, it was.
it, as we're going through, there was a strange door that was about 3 feet off the ground, and this little door is about maybe 2.5, 3 feet tall, and goes into a little dirt cellar. Well, one day they're in there for some reason, and as they're crawling across, there was a blanket spread out in this dirt cellar. Well, they're under there crawling around. Well, as they're crawling across this blanket, they hear something crunch underneath them, and they pull the blanket back, and it's old dirt floor in this particular part, in the little cellar that's above the rest of the basement. Well, they look, and it's a broken crucifix.
Wow.
And that was what they heard crunch, was the crucifix when it broke. And that they never did figure out why there was just a crucifix in there for no reason, with the blanket over the top of it spread out in the middle of the cellar. And the door had been nailed shut. So after that, that kind of spooked them a little bit, or they thought it was creepy. So they, nailed the door back shut, and just left it alone. Well, as soon as that happened, they started hearing voices and strange noises in the house. Things were being moved, and that's when all the strange activity started. Um, just very interesting case. Well, we got one particular EVP from there where the clients were gone. Nobody was there but the team, and all of us were outside. While we were outside, we went to, we decided to leave the recorders going. We left a voice recorder going in one of the bedrooms. And this is an old house. It was built in the 1920s. And it had the original front door still on it. It had one of the loud door latches and everything. Well, you hear us open the door latch to come back in. As soon as you do, you hear a voice whisper in the bedroom, very close to the recorder, that says, "Oh crap." like oh crap, they're back, But that was just one of the interesting ones, because it's like, maybe this spirit was thinking, well, they're finally gone, and then we start walking back in, and it's like, oh crap, because we were coming back in. I always thought that was interesting, but probably for me, the most interesting would be from the Old Bryce Insane Asylum.
I was just going to bring that up.
And there's one where it's me and two others, and it's all males. There's no women with us, no women nowhere nearby. And you plainly, you can hear me and the two guys that were with me. In the distance, we were probably about 30 feet away from the recorder. And you can hear us talking back and forth. But you can hear very close to the recorder a couple of footsteps, and you hear a woman start singing that song. some of you may not be familiar with it. If you watch the movie Insidious, it plays during one part of it, the part where the woman steps outside and the record player goes berserk. And she sees a little boy dancing in her house. The movie or the song "Tiptoe Through the Tulips."
Yeah.
We got an EVP of a woman singing that song. This EVP is clear enough you can make out the song she is singing. And
now I like the one where you have the moan and the door slam.
That but yes, that particular EVP though, there was no women with us, and it's clear enough you can make out what she is singing. Now that one that you're talking about, the moan and then the door slam, that is from an old rehab center that has there's some interesting activity there. We're actually looking at holding some events there pretty soon.
Yeah, I'm going to try to make it down there, hopefully before or around that time.
Which I'll be putting some announcements out on our website and on our Facebook page here very soon. But we're looking this spring and over the summer to hold some public events at that location. But yes, that EVP, very creepy, because one of the common reports from that location, people go out there alone and they hear that they'll be out there by themselves and they'll hear doors slam behind them, and they'll hear footsteps and things like that.
Well, rule number one: never go alone.
Right. And it's odd, but in that particular EVP, you hear it's a moan. But to anyone listening, if you've ever done any work in the medical field and heard someone after their heart stops, you hear that last breath when it's not really a breath, it's the last bit of air as it escapes their lungs for the final time,
being pushed out of the lungs or whatever.
Right, that's what this EVP sounds like. And then you hear a door slam immediately, and very creepy.
Yeah, very creepy EVP.
I have an EVP from Waverly Hills that was a moan like somebody in pain. And let me tell you something, you listen to that will creep you out.
Oh, I bet. I would love to investigate Waverly Hills.
And I had an experience, and this is a personal experience that my recorder did not capture, unfortunately.
Don't you love those?
Yeah.
Of course.
We were about halfway down in the death tunnel. And it was me and this other guy, and we were sitting there, and we were doing EVP and just, sitting there talking and whatever. I start hearing footsteps heel to toe coming from the bottom up. And I'm saying, you hear that? There's footsteps, somebody's walking. And he's like, no, it's the concrete settling. I worked in concrete enough to know what it sounds like. I said, concrete don't settle heel to toe. And you can distinctly hear the...
Right.
As it was coming up. And my recorder didn't pick it up, and I was so mad. Oh, I was mad. So that would have been evidence that we got if I could have captured it.
That's a good question right there, Frank. Is where would be your favorite place to investigate? That'll be a good question to go over.
Well, I always enjoy going out in the Sloss Furnace, but my favorite place, and it's going to be hard to narrow it down to one, is also, I'm going to just say my favorite place to go investigating. I'll leave it at that, because there's several individual locations in this area. Is also my favorite.
I guess I should say, what would be your place that you want to investigate the most? It should be my question, is what the question I wanted to ask.
Right. Well,
mine would be Penhurst.
Well, I love going to Savannah, Georgia. And there's so many places there to investigate. And it's also my favorite vacation spot. But that's why I was saying I couldn't really narrow it down, because there's so many individual places there to investigate. But as far as a place that I haven't investigated yet that I would love to, um, that's a tough one. Now, I I really, really have always wanted to check out the Edinburgh vaults.
Oh yeah, yes.
I've gotten
That
there's so many accounts that I've heard from there that's it would be hard for me to name one place, but that's definitely toward the top of the bucket list.
exactly. Yeah, it's at that one. That one is on one of my top five, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say my one I would want to visit is Pavaglia
Well,
Island.
that one's also on my on that would be in my top five too. Which
Island of the Dolls.
that
Yeah.
now now that one's creepy too. Now Pavelia Island actually. Did you hear about it selling?
I did. I actually did. I think I posted it in our private group. We should have throw all our money together and put a bid on that thing.
Right.
But it sold way out of our budget.
Right.
So.
Right. Our team equipment budget. I don't think that we could have gotten the 400,000 euros that it would have taken to have gotten. No.
Right.
We can dream, but no, it did. It sold, and there's so many. There's a lot of interesting developments with some of these paranormal sites. Pavelia Island just sold, and did you know that the people who bought it have talked about making it a resort?
A haunted
Oh,
resort.
really? No, I didn't know that.
And not only that, but the people who bought Waverly Hills
Are talking about making a hotel.
they're wanting to actually make it a hotel. So
Oh man. So there's spots that are known haunted locations going away because people are tearing them down, building modern homes and construction on it.
and
Maybe the people that are doing this believe in the paranormal and still allow people to come in.
well, and I think part of it is I think that, like Waverly Hills, as popular as that place is, now like you take Pavelia Island, it's a deserted island, very
right.
Especially in other cultures, a lot of people are so superstitious they won't even go near the place. It was
right.
It has a history of that's where they dumped people who had the plague. It was a tuberculosis dumping spot. So there are a lot of people who wouldn't be very open to the idea there, but when you take a place like Waverly Hills, there's so many people who go there for the sole purpose of investigating, and it's not cheap to go there.
No, it's not.
No.
I kind of believe what they're looking at is, okay, if we make a motel here at this famously haunted location, people will pay extra money because it's famously haunted to stay here.
Right, yeah.
Well, and part of the, because they were talking about turning the first floor of it into a hotel.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this is one of the rumors that I heard. They were talking about doing the first floor as a hotel. And then allowing people, I guess, that booked rooms in the hotel to be able to investigate the rest of the building while they were there.
Mm-hmm.
But if you ask me, it's kind of like the Titanic, okay? you wouldn't go down there and dismember the Titanic because you would be disturbing a graveyard.
Right.
Well, you
Right.
wouldn't go in there and remodel that and turn it into a hotel because you'd be disturbing a graveyard. Look at the deaths that all happened there, first floor all the way up.
I completely agree with you, Roger. But somebody else has dollar signs in their eyes, so
Oh, yeah.
they're gonna
Yep.
actually play off the paranormal to sell rooms.
Exactly.
So
That's exactly right. And I think that's a really sad thing.
Now in the chat room, Ross had mentioned Sweetwater Mansion in Florence, Alabama, and that is a place that I would love to check out. It's got quite a history. It was originally built. If I'm not mistaken, uh, I want to say it was built in the early 1800s. I'm not mistaken, but the activity there, ever since the home was built, I think that a lot of the activity that goes on there is tied into the land it was on, because
He said General Patton.
it yeah it I think a lot of the activity that's there is tied to the actual property, because it's almost like it was a brand new haunted house when it was built. But and there's so much history there, because they've had reports of Civil War soldiers showing up on the property. Um, they even had a report of a Civil War soldier in a casket show up
Wow.
and disappear as an
yeah,
apparition.
that's
Um,
man. I mean, and it very well could be tied to the property. We ran into a couple investigations last year we done where it wasn't the people, it wasn't the home, it was the property that it was built on.
right.
Exactly.
But now the interesting thing about Sweetwater is Sweetwater actually has a secret room in it. There is a secret room in Sweetwater Mansion that has been known, when women would find themselves in this room, have been known to get themselves locked in it and like actually go into a panic. For some reason, it doesn't happen to men; it happens to the women, and it tends to happen. They, really, it's something really disturbing that they go through. So,
I bet with not much research you can find out why that's happening. So I'm sure there was some guy there that used to do that to women back in the day, and it just stayed there. So
right. And hey, Florence isn't all that far from us, so maybe
it sure isn't. Not far at all.
So maybe we can see if we can find out something on that. But anyway,
Yeah, we need to.
we're just about to run out of time here in just a few. So, Roger, is there any upcoming events that you've got going on with your team, or anything that you want to tell real quick?
Actually, in the spring, hopefully, we have planned to join up with another team, whom the founder's name happens to be Roger. Can't beat that.
Right. Two Rogers don't make a right.
Anyway, up in Purdy, which is in McNairy County in Tennessee, there's a old mansion up there that, and the name's slipping me right now, but anyway, it has the mansion there. It also has a slave church on the property, and a really old cemetery where the guy that built the mansion was a general in the Civil War. I think he's buried there in the cemetery. And yeah, we're planning on doing that one hopefully come springtime. And Frank, you and I talked about it. Maybe we go there and then drop on down on you
Mm-hmm.
down there and check out some stuff too. So
Mm-hmm.
that's some of the plans we're working on. And of course, this summer we're talking about going to New York and doing the Bain building
Mm-hmm.
called Old Bain. And that building, the architecture is so unique. It kind of reminds me of a Greek cathedral.
Right.
It has the humongous, columns in the front, the old Greek looking columns in the front, Roman, Greek, whatever you want to call them. It's very unique, the architecture of that building.
Right.
So hopefully we're going to get to do that this summer if everything works right.
Mm-hmm.
Frank, you're going to go on that one with us, ain't you?
If things work out well, I'll be able to go up there.
That'd be awesome, wouldn't it?
Yes, it would. So,
That's pretty much what we've got, hopefully, set up for spring and summer. And of course, you never know what's going to fall in between, but
we're good.
I'm sure you guys have got
Mm-hmm.
some good stuff planned for springtime.
Yep. Yep. And someone wanting to find out more about the team. Of course, it's Half Past Dead Paranormal Investigations, and know you're on Facebook. And let me see, you've got your website going also, don't you? Um,
Actually, we have one on Weebly, half past dead .weebly.com. That's our main homepage for the website. I'm working on another little Google site, but that's just kind of what would you call that? A hobby of
right.
mine. I like to spread things out. I have the Google community, and now I have the little Google site that I'm working on, and the Facebook page, and and the radio show page, and
Mm-hmm.
all that stuff. So I keep busy, but
Right.
um, and of course, you need to come up on my page and post your links and all that stuff too, Frank. You guys need to come up there and put yourself out on my page.
Absolutely.
Uh,
And
you're in my Google page. You put your links and stuff up there, and on my YouTube channel, you can go in there and put your links in there.
right. And you've got your radio page as well, because of course you're hosting the Southern Fried Paranormal on Friday nights. So.
And soon to be Southern Fried Monday Night
Mm-hmm.
edition with yourself and
Right.
me.
Right. With that.
So everybody
Cool.
out there listening, we're going to be doing a show on Monday night. Frank and I will be
Mm-hmm.
hosting a show, Southern Fried Paranormal Monday Night edition, that will be starting. It's supposed to start on the 16th, but I have surgery on the 9th. I don't know if I will be able to sit a chair to do that show on the 16th. We may have to put it off another week.
It's okay. I'll talk to the doctor and see if we can get you a headset wheeled in there to the ICU.
Yeah,
Hospitals
get
got
me a
Wi-Fi,
wheelchair
don't
or something.
they?
But anyways, that's something new that's going to be starting up. And if we can get it worked out the way it needs to be done,
Mm-hmm.
it will be simulcasted to this network also.
Mm-hmm. Yep, that.
And
Yep, that would be on Paranormal King Network and the CJ Mars Radio Network.
exactly, on CJ Mars Network and on Paranormal King Network, it's going to be running on both if we can get it worked out, which I think is awesome. And I'm looking forward to that. I know Frank is. We're going to have a good time with it. And, of course, it'll be the paranormal and the funny side. Of course, that's the way I run things. But and we could talk about Dusty's duty belt and whatnot, and the drag queen reel, and we can just have a ball. So, and actually, he's talking about doing a picture with him and his duty belt with the drag queen fishing pole, in his little pouch. And
Right, I'm going to be. I'm going to be waiting on that one. So,
Yeah, me too. That's right. You need to post that on Facebook
Well,
for everyone to see.
yep.
yeah, well, I don't know. I don't know about that.
So,
Picture of Dusty in nothing but a duty belt with a drag queen fishing pole sticking out of a pouch. That's kind of a little bit scary.
I think I've seen one like that on peopleofwalmart.com, but I'm not sure. So, but anyway, so that's a good way to get in touch with you between the, between halfpastdead.weebly.com, or look you up on Facebook, and, look up Half Past Dead Paranormal on Facebook, or there's the CJ Mars radio page, the Southern Fried Paranormal radio page. For more information about our team, the Casper Paranormal team, it's CASPIR. That's Central Alabama Society for Paranormal Investigation and Research. You can look us up, CasperParanormal.com, or we're on Facebook at facebook.com/Casper.paranormal. If you want to find out more about the radio show that I host on Tuesday nights, the Paranormalities and Ponderings with the Casper Paranormal team, then go to facebook.com/paranormalities. And if you don't want to spell that out, just look on my personal profile or go on the Casper Facebook page and you'll find links to it. It's all over the place. Just Google it. That's what I tell people. Just Google it.
I had to rub
We're everywhere. Casper's everywhere.
Yep.
Paranormalities and Ponderings. I cannot pronounce on this time.
Yep. But anyway, well, we are out of time, so we're going to get out of here. But I want to thank you, Donald and Roger, for coming on the show. I've had a blast. So.
Hey, I have too, Frank, and we really enjoyed it, and look forward to being on a little more often.
Absolutely.
Yeah, when we start doing the show on Monday night, we're gonna have to have Donald come on with us and
yes, absolutely. Down. I'll be more than happy to come on.
I think it'd be very interesting. You're a very interesting person.
Oh, hey, I appreciate it. You're the first person. You need to speak to my wife about that too.
Well, in that case, you speak to mine too, because she don't think I'm all that anymore. But yeah, you used to think all that. Then they changed it. Now you don't even know what it is.
Yep. Well, so thanks everybody for listening in, and be sure to tune in tomorrow night for Paranormalities and Ponderings here on Paranormal King at that's going to be 8 p.m. Central Time, 9 p.m. Eastern Time, and then check with us again next Monday night at 7 p.m. Central Time or 8 p.m. Eastern Time. And we'll be back on the radio again. And just thanks for tuning in, and have a good night.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, everyone.
Thank you for listening to the Monday Night Paranormal Roundtable here on the Paranormal King Radio Network. We hope you have enjoyed the show and have learned from tonight's discussion. We look forward to talking about other areas of the paranormal again next week, as we look for the truth and seek those answers to the questions so many of us have searched for so long. Join us again next time for the Monday Night Paranormal Roundtable here on the Paranormal King Radio Network. Take care. Stay safe. Keep learning. And remember, the paranormal will never be the same.
You are listening to Paranormal King Radio Network. Stay tuned for the best in paranormal broadcasting, including the best shows, guests, hosts, features, music, and educational programming. Join us as we work together to seek the truth and search for answers to the unexplained while promoting teamwork and working together. Thank you for listening to Paranormal King Radio Network.
You are listening to WCJV Digital Broadcasting, Youngstown, New York.